You're listening to the Morphology Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Morphology Podcast, aka Murph here to share interviews about biking experiences from cyclists who have pedaled to places all over. Each week we will get to know new people and explore new destinations to ride your bike. As you listen to these adventures, you may wonder, why haven't I done that yet? Well, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to this podcast and give it a thumbs up if it's deserving. Helps me out a lot. And a quick shout out to Simmons Electric, our newest sponsor. Simmons Electric is a huge supporter of Iowa bike trails. Thanks, Mike and everyone at Simmons Electric for supporting the podcast and for supporting bikes. On this episode, it's all about biking in the state of Oregon. DJ Waldron is on the show to talk about group rides in Oregon he's been part of, along with some rides on the old bucket list. Oregon seems to have it all, with mixed elevation, scenic views, and rides that take you right to the ocean. I did a little bike riding in the Deschutes National Forest when I was in Bend a few months ago, and promised myself I would make a return trip to ride some more. After talking with DJ, I think I know which rides I'll be signing up for. Anyway, here's DJ. All right, well, on the show today we have Dave Waldron. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Kathy. How are you?
I'm good.
Or should I call you Murph?
I was going to say, I can't really call you Dave because I only know you as DJ. So I hope you don't mind if I slip up and call you DJ.
Please do.
All right, listeners. Well, this is a treat that I get to talk to DJ on the podcast because I have literally known DJ my entire life because he's my first cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I don't think we ever lived together in the same space, though, did we? Like, were we both in Iowa at the same time ever?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, I was there kind of grade school off and on.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there for a couple of years in grade school.
Okay. But luckily, my dad and your mom were siblings, and they loved each other enough that we got to see each other multiple times a year, I think throughout all of our at least teenage years. So I have definitely, I feel like I know you pretty well. Hopefully you agree.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We had some great times growing up. I remember the good memories.
Yeah. And then really cool, we ended up meeting for a wedding. It'd be your niece's wedding a couple months ago, and realized how much cycling that we both have in common. So that's why I ended up getting you on the podcast.
Sounds great. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get started. First off, I know this, but tell the listeners where you live and a little bit about the cycling culture there, because this is an amazing place to live and be on a bike.
Yeah, I'm in Westland, Oregon, which is kind of a suburb of Portland. So technically you would think of it as Portland, Oregon. And yeah, cycling's a pretty big deal here in Portland. Has been for quite a while. We've got a very strong cycling community. I mean, the city is focused on encouraging that. In fact, since I've lived here, which has been about 19 years now, they've done a lot of adding bike lanes. We've got a lot of paved bike trails that are dedicated, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then they do a lot of most recently where they've closed actually lanes that, streets that used to be 2 lanes for cars, and they've gone to 1 lane for cars and added a full dedicated bike lane to bikes.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that's been going around Portland for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. And I follow a couple of groups and pages on social media that are specific to Portland biking. And maybe it's just the photos that I see, but it seems like vehicles and bicyclists get along really well together on those streets you just mentioned.
They do for the most part. I mean, it's kind of funny. Our cycling culture got so strong there for a period. The cyclists tended to be sort of causing some of the problems because they would be very assertive, thinking they own the road, and some motorists would get upset. And so there's a little bit of that stuff going on. I'm sure that happens in a lot of cities. But overall, the nice thing with Portland is that the motorists are used to having a lot of bikes on the roads. Mm-hmm. They're fairly tolerant and for the most part look out for bikes. When when I travel in Southern Oregon, and sometimes I'll bring my bike down there with me, and I go out for the rides. I get in some of these country roads, and I'm a little nervous because down there just aren't as many cyclists,
Sure.
and these cars just aren't used to looking out for them when they go ripping around a corner. So I always feel a lot more comfortable cycling around the Portland area. So.
Right. And then the other thing to think about, when you see a large volume of cyclists in like a Portland area, most of those cyclists are also drivers of vehicles. So I'm hoping that, they have that mindset of when I'm in my car, I still need to be aware of my surroundings and the cyclists that are out there.
Oh yeah, totally. And yeah, and I do that myself as well when I'm in my car and I see a couple of guys on bikes. I'm always want to make sure I leave plenty of space when I pass them or slow down and be, because I'm thinking about that. So yeah, we see that a lot.
Yeah.
And the one funny thing about Portland is if you ever come down here during the rush hour, there's a rush hour for bikes.
Oh, wow.
Because so many people cycle into work. And that's a real big thing. And even during the winter when it's raining, people put their work clothes in waterproof bags and they cycle in. And I mean, they're really dedicated to that stuff. But if you hang out in downtown Portland, it's crazy. And I learned this when I was a runner, and I used to run downtown a lot, is, I'd try to avoid the rush hour because there would be just a wall of bikes coming from downtown going to some of the suburbs.
I wish I could see that in my community. That is so awesome.
And of course, Portland, we've got the naked bike ride too. Which is,
I was going to
participated in.
I literally was going to bring that up, and I'm like, do I really want to know if my cousin has ridden his bike naked? But now I know.
No, I haven't done that. I did a bare buns run, which was a naked 5K run, but I've never done the bike ride. So, but that's another story. We'll leave for another time.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if people are interested, they can probably Google the naked bike ride in Portland. And
yes.
I maybe would have done it, like 30 years ago before cell phones and photos were a thing, in Facebook. But there's no way in heck I would do it now.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you think back to, I know that you cycle now and you have some events coming up that we're going to talk about, but have you always been a cyclist, or did you find the love again as an adult?
Well, I dabbled in it when I was in high school. I thought of myself as, I bought a really nice Trek bike. I remember saving my money from my jobs in high school and had this beautiful bike. I had a friend, and we'd ride up to Sun River and back, and unfortunately, the bike got stolen when I was in college, and I just never really got back into it. So, no, it's something that honestly, I didn't start doing until about 5 or 6 years ago. I got back into cycling.
And what sparked it? Like, a lot of people will say, oh, I was a runner and then my knees hurt. Are you that guy too?
I'm that guy. Yes, absolutely. So what happened is, I was big time into running in my 40s, and I was doing marathons and half marathons. I was part of a running club, just really living, eating, breathing, running. And then during my running career, I thought, I'd like to broaden out a little bit. So I decided to try a couple triathlons.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was doing triathlons, my brother-in-law. And so I thought, well, I better get a bike. And I had a buddy who had an older bike that he wasn't using anymore, so he loaned it to me. And so then I decided to start riding and training, and ended up doing my first triathlon. So I guess triathlons were kind of the gateways to. Yeah. It's kind of like the gateway drug for cycling, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But I really enjoyed it. It was pretty funny though, because I actually thought running would be my strongest suit, but swimming ended up being my strongest suit. But definitely when I got on that bike, all those people I was passing, in the swim, boy, I got on the bike and they'd be ripping by me. So it was definitely not my strongest suit. And those triathlons, I don't know if you've ever done one, but they put your age on your calf. I don't know why they do that. They write it on your calf. So you'd be cycling along, you go see somebody go ripping by you, like, oh yeah, they're 32, no big deal. And then all of a sudden you see some lady go ripping by me, and I'm like, what, 64? I'm like, man.
That's awesome. I have done a ton of sprint triathlons, which is the shortest version of a triathlon, but I gave up on it. I am not a runner, but at least during the running portion, you can walk if you really want to. But that swim, man, you either you either swim it or you drown or a boat drags you out. So
Yeah.
I am just not a fan. And I think it was mostly because of all the creatures in the body of water I'd be swimming in. I think it was maybe seaweed that I was actually feeling, but in my imagination, I had like eels and snakes and leeches stuck to me, and it was not true. But my triathlon days, I think, are over.
Yeah, the swimming, I did a little bit of swimming when I was in middle school, some competitive swimming. And so I can say I at least know how to swim.
Yeah.
And so that didn't bother me that much. And nowadays they have, I forget what they call them, the kind of duathlons where you do just a swim and the bike.
Oh, okay.
And then skip the run portion. So I was thinking about doing that. What happens with running, I started to get consistent knee pain, and we thought it was ligament damage at first. And eventually, after 2 years of running in pain, an MRI confirmed that I got no more cartilage left in my left knee, so I had to give up running.
Yeah, yeah.
And so then I just started to concentrate on cycling because it's low impact and I could still do it pain free, and I do enjoy it.
Excellent. And when I was there in Oregon to visit family, including you, you brought your bike with you. So it was really cool that I didn't actually get to, I only saw the bike on top of your car, but it was just cool that you decided to travel to see family, but then also brought your bike to get a ride in, which segues into the event I wanted to talk about because you were actually training for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's called Ride the Rim, but you'll have to tell me.
Yeah, Ride the Rim. This will be the third time I'm going to do it. It's a Crater Lake National Park. It's Oregon's only national park, and what it is, it's a huge lake at the top of a volcano. I guess if you go, the story is the volcano exploded and kind of took the top off, and then the crater filled in with water, and it's actually, I think, the deepest lake either in the world or U.S. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, it's a really cool spot, and they have a road that goes all the way around the lake. And so twice a year, 2 weekends in a row in September, they close the majority of the road to cars, and they just open up to bikes.
Oh,
and
nice.
You could run it too. I mean, I've seen people walking and running it, but it's a pretty good distance. It's 33 miles total around the loop. So it's just a fun destination thing to do. It's very, very even though the distance isn't long, 33 miles, it's a real challenge because of the elevation climb. If you look at the map, I don't know if you've seen it on the website, the elevation, it looks like shark's teeth. It's like 1,000-foot climb, 800-foot drop, 1,000-foot climb, 800-foot drop. And it's like up and down about 4 or 5 times. So, and you're starting at 6,000 feet elevation. So you're already at a high elevation, and you go up to 7,400, I think is the peak. So you're definitely up in the mountains. So it's a thinner air, very challenging. But first time I did it, I was fairly intimidated, and it's really ended up not being as difficult as I thought. And maybe it's because I living in Portland. It's a very hilly around here, so you just can't go out for a bike ride with any kind of distance without hitting a lot of hills. So I already had a lot under my belt, but it wasn't too bad. I mean, and so you just got to put your head down and get up to 3-4 mile climb, and then you got 3 or 4 miles on the other side. It's just straight downhill.
Yeah.
Recover.
Well, and you were telling me about it, and so I just looked up the actual event, and I'm like, oh, Ride the Rim. That sounds really simple. You get to the top, and then you just cruise around, and then you go back down, and then, like you mentioned, I saw that it is not flat. I mean, you are definitely. You have to train for this event. Oh
yeah. I mean, there's people that'll do it. I've seen guys out there on mountain bikes, in shorts and flip flops, but it's going to take them 5-6 hours to get around the rim.
Right.
So I feel for those guys. We have a lot of aid stations. It's very well supported. A third of it still will have cars. So there's about a 9-mile stretch with cars. And if you opt not to do that, they have a shuttle bus. So you can start at the South Rim, ride around, I guess that would be counterclockwise, and then they'll pick you up there and they'll shuttle you to your car.
Oh, okay.
Or you could, vice versa. You could do it the opposite direction too. But both time we've done it, we've chosen to do the whole thing. And the 9 miles with the cars, you just, grit down and get through it.
Sure, yeah. And are you planning to do it this year?
Yeah.
All right, so coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up in September. I'm a little behind in my training, I'll have to admit, but so I might be a little slower this year, but we'll get through it.
Awesome.
And it's fun. It's a fun destination event too. I do it. I've done it consistently with a friend of mine. He's actually my daughter's father-in-law, and the last time we did it, the wives came along and they went hiking while we rode, and we're going to do that again this time. And we make it a weekend event and go wine tasting and go out to dinner, and it's just a cool place.
Excellent. So everyone, after they're done listening to this, needs to Google Crater Lake National Park and Ride the Rim.
Ride the Rim. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome
Place to visit.
A quick interruption to tell you this week's podcast is sponsored by Lizard Lips Lip Balm. These great lip balms contain natural ingredients, come in a variety of flavors, and you can choose certified organic or balms with sun protection. Check it out at lizardlips.net. Now back to the show. And another ride that you mentioned when we were talking was Reach the Beach, and I wanted to, have you tell the listeners a little bit about that event.
Yeah, I had another cycling friend that wanted to do that, and he encouraged me to sign up for it. It's a fundraiser for American Lung Disease. Thank you. Anyhow, it goes from basically Portland, Oregon to the beach, and finishes at Pacific City. And the cool thing is, if you do the whole ride, it's 100 miles, so it's a century.
Oh, okay.
And that's what we originally signed up to do. But you can join at different parts. There's you can sign up and do 70 miles, you can do 50, or even if you want to just do 30 miles. So there's different starting points. And when you register, if you're not that strong of a cyclist, but you want to participate, then you can say, I'll just do the 30. And then that means your start time's a little later in the day, and you just start there and join the group. And at the end at Pacific City, they've got a big party, beer garden. It's kind of I didn't show you this picture, but what everybody does at the end is you go out on the beach and you hold your bike up above your head.
Oh, okay,
Get the picture. I'll have to send you the picture of us doing that.
And when you say reach the beach, you're literally talking about the ocean, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so from Portland, Oregon, and you think you've got to cross the Cascade Range, so there's a little bit of hill climbing in there as well, but it's not that bad. I mean, certainly I would consider it not as much of a hill climbs as you got with the Crater Lake ride.
Mm-hmm. And I did look up the event on the internet, and it's been going on for over 30 years. So that's a well-oiled event.
Oh yeah, they're really well organized, and you can opt, I think, to sign up to get lunch halfway through, and there's a nice break setting. There's music going, and you get some food and join in. Now, what happened with me is my buddy did the whole 100. But I had a business meeting that was on the East Coast, and my flight got me back at, well after midnight the night before. So I decided getting up at a 7 a.m. start and doing biking 100 miles just wasn't in it for me. So I ended up doing the 70-mile stretch. So I met him about 3/4 of the way. So I just waited for him at that aid station. When he came through, we just joined in together, and we rode the rest of the way to the beach. He ended up... He rented a place down there, which was great because then we could shower and then go hit the beer gardens. But I didn't, so it's close enough. You can just drive home afterwards.
Yeah. Well, so those are two amazing events that really showcase Oregon. Any dream rides that you are on your bucket list? A quick interruption to give a shout out to Primal Wear. Cycling is their passion and apparel is their craft. So if you're in the market for a new jersey, bibs, mask, or any cycling apparel, go to primalwear.com and use code PRIMALMURPH to get 20% off your purchase. Yes, 20% off. Now back to the show.
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to do Cycle Oregon, which is it's an event that has the route changes every year, but
Mm-hmm.
it's about a 2 or 3 day event. I'm trying to remember exactly what it is. But that one they'll pack your stuff in your tent and move it for you, and you
Oh,
just have to
okay.
cycle, so you don't have to carry anything with you. And it's pretty expensive. And I just haven't gotten around to looking into it and signing up for it. But that's one I've always thought I'd like to do
Mm-hmm.
at some point. And they changed the. It's, I guess, probably similar to Ragbri in Iowa.
Yeah, it sounds like it, especially if if they're hauling your gear. So it's like an outdoor camping event. Those
Hmm.
are always like just fun in itself, much less the views that you get while you're riding.
Right, right. Yeah, so that one's always been on my radar, and I know I get emails from them, so I signed up for their list. So
Mm.
one of these years, I'll have to sign up and do that. And then the other one that I had another friend that was always bugging me to try and do is they call it the STP. It's
Hmm.
Seattle to Portland ride,
Ooh.
and that just you go take back roads and you just go from Seattle to Portland, and that's a 2 day event if you do the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And I
But
think I looked, let me think if I remember, Cascade Bike Club, I think is who sponsors the STP one.
yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Cool.
so that's
Wow.
another one.
I might have
Okay.
to put those on my list. I really like the Cycle Oregon idea, but then also Seattle to Portland. I mean, that just sounds awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's. I've heard it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously now when you're on your bike, you're probably thinking more about training for the upcoming Ride the Rim. But what is it that you enjoy about cycling?
You know, I mean, cycling. It's a lot like when I got into running. Is that I could pick and choose. Do I want to have it as a social event
Mm-hmm.
where I meet up with 2 or 3 buddies and we just go out for a ride, and afterwards if it's in the morning, we'll grab coffee. If we're midday, maybe we'll go have a beer afterwards, and just it's just a great social activity.
Yeah,
And so I'll
definitely.
do that often. But sometimes, you just feel like chilling on your own. And so sometimes I'll just get out there by myself, and I've got my favorite routes that I like to do, and I just get out there in the trees. And the cool thing about Portland is I can choose to go take a downtown route and go see the city and climb up through there. And Portland's so beautiful. There's a lot of just really gorgeous roads with trees and
Mm-hmm.
views you can go on. I could do that, or I could choose to go the other direction and go into the country. And then I'm biking by cows and climbing hills and out farmland and uh, go out into the forest. So there's just so many options available to you, and that's what I love about it. But that's the thing that intrigues me is I can pick and choose. Do I want to do something on my own, or do I want to meet up with a bunch of friends?
Yeah, that's the beauty of living in such a beautiful place, but then also having like-minded friends who
Hmm.
like to cycle. So, like you said, I'm the same way where sometimes I'll just go by myself and take my time. Sometimes I'll go fast. I've gotten into gravel riding because here in Iowa, most gravel roads, actually there's thousands and thousands of miles of gravel, but it's also really low traffic. So, that's really peaceful as well.
Yeah, the one thing I haven't really ever gotten into is mountain biking, and I know that's big around here. Um, I do have a mountain bike, and I'll go out. The gravel roads sound great, but when you start jumping logs and going
Right.
down rocks and cliffs and stuff, I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I don't
I
need
don't know
to
if I
break
want to
bones at this point in
be
my life.
exactly. I don't know if I want to be clipped into a bike jumping logs, but some
Right.
people are really into that. Love it. Go for
Yeah, right,
it.
right, yeah. When you are training for your events, you mentioned all the different scenery that you can see. Are you mostly on trails, or are you the kind of guy that kind of is like, all right, I'm going to share the road with traffic and hope for the best?
Yeah, mostly sharing the road and hope for the best. It does, it does worry me at times. And I had a friend that from college who just had a car turn in front of him, and he was in an accident. Looks like he's going to be okay. But I've always had, been well lit up in the back of my bike, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'm thinking now I need to get a light for the front
Mm-hmm.
because this person just didn't notice him and turned in front of him, and I think the best, wearing the bright clothing, being lit up as much as you can, just to try and so make yourself visible and seen.
Yeah.
Can help a lot, but it does make me nervous. The bike paths around here are great. And there's some routes where I'll do, and maybe half of it's on dedicated bike lanes, but oftentimes they're kind of flat. And I want to get up and get some hills in me and get a good workout in, get the heart rate up.
Yeah, yeah. And you say the word hills, and I from my time in Oregon, those hills are much, much steeper than here in Iowa. And Iowa is not flat, but I laugh when you say hills, and then I'm like, oh, that's like a 7% grade, some of those. Those are steep.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I don't know if you have any advice, but if people are listening to this and like, oh my gosh, so I got to go to Oregon and ride my bike, any advice you'd give somebody who maybe wants to get back into biking at over 50 and they haven't yet?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you mentioned earlier, just finding some like-minded people to ride with, and if you don't know anybody, look up a club.
Yeah.
I haven't done that with cycling yet. I know there's a lot of cycling clubs around that do group rides and all meetups and all kind of stuff. But when I was running, that was a really important thing for me because I was newly single, and I was out there and I was starting to run. I wanted to get into shape, and I was out there by myself quite a bit, and then after doing a couple of races, realized I'm standing by myself and there's groups of people that are having fun and talking. I said, I need to make some running friends.
Right.
So I got on Google and found a local running club, joined that, made some lifelong friends. And it just so happens that I already have some built-in buddies that I ride with. And they're we're mostly about the same level. Every now and then, I've got one buddy who likes to push it a little bit, and that's great. It gets me out of my comfort zone, but I always have to be a little cautious if we're heading out for a 25 or 30 mile ride that could easily turn into 45 or 50 if I'm not careful. So.
I know those people well, those kind of people.
Yes.
Well, we talked about Ride the Rim, which is easy to Google, Reach the Beach, also Cycle Oregon. Their website is cycleoregon.com. That Seattle to Portland ride is sponsored by the Cascade Bicycle Club. Any other organizations that you want to plug while we're talking?
There was one other group that's down in the Salem area. There's a Salem Bicycle Club.
Oh.
And I did one of their rides called the Peach of a Century that went through the Willamette Valley. So that was kind of a cool little spot. And it seemed sort of like Reach the Beach. You could do 100 miles or 76 or 66 miles. I mean, they had, different levels. So I don't know them well. I just went down there just to do the ride for fun. But they seemed like a cool group. Peach of a Century was that was that crazy ride where we were going through the farmland and the Willamette Valley, and then all of a sudden you start to smell marijuana. You're like, wow, what's going on?
No
and you turn the corner, and here's this big pot farm, I guess CBD farm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And, it's something you're just not used to seeing. Now that marijuana is legal in Oregon.
Yeah.
They have these huge farms, and they have signs out that they're not the kind with the THC. And
well, I was just going to ask, I wonder if you can get a contact high from breathing in the plant. You know what I mean? Like as you pedal by, did you get super relaxed and started thinking about soft thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think so. But I'll tell you, it did smell. It's like, whoof, those stinky farms.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
I'll put them right up there with the hog farms in Iowa.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, DJ, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking about Portland and just Oregon cycling in general. It just sounds amazing.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's fun. I'm glad we got to reconnect at the wedding, and but one of these days I just gotta throw my bike on the car and drive out to Iowa.
Oh my gosh, you should do it in July so you could do a couple days of ride.
I would love that.
Well, listeners, that's it for this week. Thanks, DJ, for taking the time to talk about your adventures on the bike in Oregon, and best of luck on your ride around Crater Lake. Also, a shout out to the rest of the family who hopefully tuned in to hear this episode. Hi to Aunt Mary, Teresa, Chrissy, Haley, Sheila, and all your families. Email me at murphologypodcast@gmail.com if you have a topic or the name of a cyclist you find interesting. Support my podcast at patreon.com/murphology. Visit my Instagram page for daily entertainment and check out my website for all kinds of bicycle stuff. I will leave you with this quote from the Unwritten Book of Murphology. This quote comes from F. Scott Fitzgerald. For what it's worth, it's never too late to be whoever you want to be. I hope you live a life you're proud of. And if you find you're not, I hope you have the strength to start over again. Think about it.